And a very good morning to you. How you doing? Sunday morning, September 30th, 2018. Hope you're well. Hope you've had a good weekend. It's me, Richie Allen. Who else with Sunday View? Over the course of the next hour, I'll be looking at the front pages of the Sunday broadsheets and tabloids. I'll be playing you some audio from the Sunday morning talk programme, Sophie Ridge and Andrew Marr. And we'll look at one or two stories inside the newspapers as well. Why not? Hey, why not, I tell you. Welcome to Sunday View.
Asking the questions mainstream journalists will never ask. This is your Richie Allen Show on richieallen.co.uk, Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, and triggerwarning.tv.
And all you have to do is tweet the programme with an opinion or 3 or 7 or 9. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter as well. Sunday View is live right now. Fab Radio, Trigger Warning, Cogent Radio, richieallen.co.uk.
It's the Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
I'll beat that guy one day. Beat the intro. Yeah, it's pretty dull. It's warm though. It's mild here in Manchester, but it's pretty dull and overcast. And I believe the weather forecast for the next few days is wet and a bit windy. Welcome to Manchester. Right, good stuff. Yeah, I've had a good weekend so far. Relaxing weekend, chilling out being the operative word. Haven't done very much. Haven't been outside very much really. Plan maybe on getting out for a little while a bit later on. But to more important things and the Sunday newspapers. I'll tell you what, just before I start with the front pages, there's an interesting story in the Mail on Sunday today. It's inside and I couldn't not start with it. I tried not to, but I couldn't help myself. Here's a story and here's a headline. First of all, inside the paper, the Sunday Mail. Pro-Palestine Labour MP is quizzed by police after he brands the Israeli ambassador in London a tosser at the party's annual conference. Now, could that be true? Is that headline accurate? Was a Labour MP questioned by the police for calling Mark Regev a tosser? Because we know things are sinister, but that's pretty sinister if it's true. Well, the subsequent story, the text of, in fact, doesn't support the headline. So who knows what's going on? Let me read you from the story. Graham Jones, Labour MP, was questioned by police after branding the Israeli ambassador a tosser at his party's annual conference last week. The MP was quizzed by Merseyside officers after he was overheard muttering the insult at an event attended by Mark Regev, Israel's representative in London. However, the MP, a fierce critic of Jeremy Corbyn, was only questioned by police because a passing Corbyn aide thought the jibe was aimed at her. So which is true then? And either way, it's pretty sinister, right? Was he questioned because he called Mark Regev a tosser? Or was he questioned because some woman, some assistant to Jeremy Corbyn, thought that he was calling her a tosser? Well, the Mail writes, the Sunday Mail goes on. The woman was seen remonstrating with Mr. Jones at the packed conference fringe meeting in Liverpool before police intervened. The Mail on Sunday said the scenes were farcical and they unfolded the night before Corbyn sought to draw a line under the party's summer-long rows over anti-Semitism. But at the conference's annual Labour Friends of Israel meeting, speakers, including a member of the Israeli parliament, vented their anger at the way the anti-Semitism controversy had been handled. So at this Labour Friends of Israel conference, there were Zionists there bitching about how Corbyn had handled the anti-Semitism stuff. And this MP, Graham Jones, went tosser when Mark Regev stood up to speak. Next thing, he found himself outside being spoken to by the police. But the Mail on Sunday can't make its mind up whether he was being questioned because he called Regev a tosser, which is fairly sinister if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me. Or if it's because he got into an argument with this snowflake of a woman who's an assistant to Jeremy Corbyn who thought she was being called a tosser. if she went to the police and said, somebody called me a tosser, and the police felt compelled to interview the man for allegedly calling someone a tosser, again, it's very sinister. So I don't know what is true and what isn't true. But the Mail on Sunday's story, the text, doesn't support the headline, which clearly states Jones was questioned because he called Regev a tosser. Now, Mark Regev is beyond a tosser, right? Way beyond. There are words in my lexicon, swear words that I was taught when I was baptised years ago in a little church in Ballybeg in Waterford when I was about 4 months old. They teach you these things when you're Irish from birth. Swear words. Colourful, wonderful swear words. There are things I could say about Mark Regev now that even I wouldn't say. Oh, he's a scumbag. This is the guy who was rolled out by every British television news channel when Operation Protective Edge was raining bombs down on Palestinian children in 2014. This scum is what he is. And the idea that Graham Jones would say he's a tosser and that somehow he would end up being questioned by the police. Who's really running things in this country? It's a good question, isn't it? Shall we leave that there? Enough of that for the moment, yeah. Start with a bit of controversy. 6 minutes past 11, it's live Sunday View. Fab Radio 2, triggerwarning.tv, Cogent Radio app, download it. And of course, richieallen.co.uk. So the Sunday Times, let's get the Brexit stuff out of the way. Don't go anywhere, stay where you are. I can see you. Stay there. It's only going to be 10 minutes. Calm down. Calm down, dear. Don't touch that empty teacup. Sit there and wait. I'll make it interesting. So there's a lot of Brexit stuff going on because the Tories are in Birmingham for their annual conference. They'll never come back to Manchester again. They were here last year and they were egged the bejesus out of. We egged the bejesus. I didn't egg anybody. I have no interest. I sat in my ivory tower and watched other people egg them and abuse them. So please God, they'll never darken the doorstep of this great city ever again. But they're in Birmingham now. Right, more on that in a minute. So the Sunday Times leads with the headline, Boris versus May, now it's war. That's the headline, Boris versus May, now it's war. So Boris Johnson, now this must be properly cheesing off Theresa May because she wrote an article in the Sunday Times. She wrote an article for the Times today saying that Labour should stop playing political games and that her own party should just back Chequers, right? So she must be cheesed off because nobody told her that the Sunday Times would also feature an interview with Boris Johnson, the bumbling, stuttering, moronic buffoon that used to be the Foreign Secretary. So he lays out his own manifesto today in the Sunday Times for how the Tories can win the next election. And he is fairly critical of his Prime Minister and he calls the Chequers plan deranged. In the interview with the Times, Johnson says the government needs to be proud to advance conservative ideas and build houses and infrastructure and take on Jeremy Corbyn. He says Britain should build a bridge to Ireland. A bridge to Ireland. Lovely. And put the HS2 scheme on hold so that a high-speed rail link can be built across the north of England, blah, 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 blah. On Brexit, he said May's proposal is entirely preposterous and suggested that a Brexiteer would get a better deal. Unlike the Prime Minister, I campaigned to leave, he said. Unlike the Prime Minister, I fought for this. I believe in it. I think it's the right thing for our country. And I think that what is happening now is, alas, not what people were promised in 2016. Do you think, Boris? What does Theresa May think about her plan being called deranged? Well, just before I came on air to chat with you, dear friend, she sat down with Andrew Marr on BBC One. What does she make of her plan being called deranged?
And as I've put forward, I've just explained.
She was just about to say something there. She was just about to shout an expletive that rhymes with runt. Listen, but then she stops herself.
And as I...
Right, okay.
I've put forward, I've just explained to you why I believe that the plan we've put forward is a plan that is in the national interest. Mm-hmm. What do I want to do as Prime Minister and as a government? First of all, I want to ensure we deliver on the Brexit vote. And that means ensuring there's no free movement, that we can have control of our borders.
This is a plan that he thinks is deranged. I mean, just completely impossible to deliver and wrong in principle.
Well, it is, because, first of all, her party won't vote for it. Labour won't vote for it. And the European Union told her at Salzburg last week, piss off, love, we don't like it either. Right.
This is a plan.
Vassalage.
This is a plan which ensures that we deliver on the vote of the British people.
It's actually a plan that keeps the UK in the European Union. That's a fact. I'm not just making that up. So keep that in mind.
Thing we need to do. People voted for an end to free movement.
He doesn't even think you believe in it. He said today, unlike the Prime Minister, I campaigned for Brexit. Unlike the Prime Minister, I fought for this. I believe in it. He thinks, in the end, you don't really believe in a proper Brexit.
I do believe in Brexit, but crucially, I believe in delivering Brexit in a way that respects the vote and delivers on the vote of the British people, while also protecting our union, protecting jobs, and ensuring that we make a success of Brexit for the future. That's why I'm being ambitious for this country. That's why I want us to get a really good free trade deal with the European Union.
Yes, I see. Be quiet. You can actually hear Mar mumbling away there in the background. Yes, I see. Get to the question. Her plan, I have to remind you of this, it basically keeps the UK in the EU in all but name. It's a fact. It keeps the UK under the jackboot of the European Union, rules on standards relating to goods. It leaves the door wide open for freedom of movement to continue. We wouldn't be leaving.
With the European Union, which is what lies at the heart of the Chequers plan.
And you took the Chequers plan to Salzburg, and it was rejected unanimously by the other 27. President Macron said afterwards, he said, the proposals in their current state are not acceptable. The Chequers plan cannot be take it or leave it. Now, if you take exactly the same plan back to exactly the same people next month and get exactly the same result, you can't know that we're not heading for no deal, can you?
Well, first of all, what leaders across the European Union have been saying, I met a number of them when I was in New York last week, is that they do want a deal. They do want us to be able to come to an agreement. And as I do, and that's what I'm working for. That's what government is working for.
But you're going to have to move if you're going to get that agreement.
A good deal for the United Kingdom. But what I've also said is...
But you're going to have to shift to get that agreement.
Andrew, you seem to be of the view that if the European Union says, oh, we have a problem here, then we should somehow make some adjustment without knowing what that problem is.
No. Both sides have to move. Both sides have to move, but that includes you.
The point is very simple. Until we know what their problem is, that's what we need. We need to know what their concerns are.
They don't want you to leave the European Union, you daft bint. But then you know that anyway. That's their plan. What you've offered them is tantamount, as I said, to keeping the UK in the EU, but they want more. It's as simple as that. They want more. Does May say anything else in the last 15 seconds of this? I don't think so.
No, this is challenging for the European Union. I accept that because it is an ambitious deal. It's a deal like no other. It's a deal that they haven't entered into with anybody else.
It's a deal they think destroys the single market.
And we believe it does not destroy the single market, and we need to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, it's going to end, May, because their own party won't vote for it in Parliament. It's got to get through Westminster, which it won't. That's the end of it anyway. It's a nonsense to carry on talking about it. And if Mar was any good, he'd be saying, what do you keep talking about it for? It's dead. It's over. Nobody's going to vote for it. Right, okay. Now, the former Brexit Secretary David Davis, who resigned, you might remember, back in July, he resigned in opposition to this very Chequers plan, because he said at the time, and he was right, it keeps the UK in the European Union. It is staying in all but name. So he was on the Sophie Ridge programme, Sky News this morning, and he just reiterates here why Chequers is dead and why it is unworkable. Former Brexit Secretary David Davis.
Just wrong. I mean, Boris specialises in more dramatic language than me, but it's just wrong. I mean, it just doesn't do either what the referendum led people to expect, bring back control of laws. It absolutely explicitly doesn't do that, and it doesn't bring back control of borders. So those two things straight away, and it's much more than that, but just two things straight away. It doesn't meet our referendum promise or indeed our manifesto promise. So it's not something. Even when it's done, even when it's concluded, if we got Chequers, the Europe issue wouldn't go away. The toothache we've had for 30 years on this subject would still be there for another 20 years. So it's not the right answer.
So you can't help but thinking, we're here, aren't we, in a situation 6 months before we leave the European Union. Theresa May says that the only credible proposal on the table is Chequers. You say that it's wrong. You've got to take some responsibility for that, haven't you? Because you were Brexit Secretary for 2 years.
Well, you should read my resignation letter. I mean, I told her at each stage where I thought we were going the wrong way, from the way we started negotiations immediately after the election campaign, the concession on Ireland in December. I said, no, that's not the right way to go. The Prime Minister at the end of the day is the lead negotiator. She decides. At each stage, I thought, well, maybe I can make that work, even though I don't think it's right. But eventually, it got to the point, you can't make it work. It is so far off what is the right strategy.
Yeah, and it'll be voted down by her own party as well as the Labour Party, so it's going nowhere, and whatever Lib Dems remain in Westminster. I'll tell you what's very interesting about something Davis said next. There's a lot of talk about time running out and that Article 50 should be extended to delay. A lot of people calling for the extension of Article 50. Let's not let the time run down. Let's just extend the time period so that we can take as long as we need to get a deal. Okay, a lot of Remainers very much up for that because it basically just prolongs it, right? Now, Davis reckons, in fact, the opposite is true, and that 6 months is loads of time, and he explains why. And this is kind of interesting. Here's David Davis, former Brexit Secretary, saying, don't worry about the time running out, this is why.
And by the way, you said it's 6 months. Actually, that's plenty of time, bluntly. I've always said to the Prime Minister from the beginning, the issue in this is going to be the last month. It's not going to be the 2 years that run up to it. It's going to be the last month because the European Union always uses time, always tries to pressurise you, always takes you to what they call the cliff edge and then sees if you panic.
So you think there will be a deal then?
Yeah, I think there will be a deal. I think it's 80-90% likely there'll be a deal. And I think actually the deal will end up as something like what Boris calls Super Canada, what somebody else called Free Trade Plus, basically a free trade-based deal. But we're going to have a very scary few months. Between now and about November, it's going to be really scary. Everybody's going to be calling each other's bluff. There's all sorts of brinkmanship going to go on.
Good stuff, this. What Davis is basically saying is, these arseholes, and that's what they are in Brussels, they've got to answer to French, German, Dutch, I could be here all day, to their food manufacturers, to their car manufacturers, to their clothes manufacturers. They're going to have to answer to those people. And I've said this 1,000 times since the referendum result in 2016. Stick it to these bastards. Say, listen, we'll do a trade deal with you as long as we're completely outside the European Union and as long as we're completely away from your jurisdiction. We'll make our own laws. We'll decide when and where we need migrants to come into the country to fill vacancies. We will decide all of that. We will fish our waters. We will do all the things that we should do, but we will do a trade deal with you if you'll just stop acting the fucking monkey man. Stop acting like muppets and we'll do a deal with you. And what you need to do is you need to stare these people in the eye and say, right, let the time run down. We couldn't give a shite. We're happy to leave with no deal and go to WTO terms. We can do that. You've got to go back to, I could be naming the companies all day long, the major food and car and textile manufacturing companies of Spain, France, Germany, the Netherlands, and so on, so on, so on. You, Barnier, you go back to these people and tell them that you're willing to destroy them in order to coerce this country to staying in the European Union we don't want to stay in. So he's right to say that, Davis. Very good that. That's how you do it, right? If it was real, in real terms, in reality, if this was all real and not a farce, that's what you would do with Barnier and Verhofstadt and Drunker and all the rest of them.
That's normal. That's the European Union, daily bread, and that's what we've got to be ready for. That's why we're making the argument now. That's why it was important to resign in July, because we've got to make the arguments in the last round. Chequers won't fly. It won't fly in Europe, and it won't fly in Parliament.
So Brussels won't accept Chequers. You disagree with Boris Johnson there, then?
Yeah, because Johnson says that Brussels will accept Chequers at the very last minute because Chequers basically keeps the UK in. I've said this for months since July. They love Chequers, the European Union, because it keeps us in all but name. But maybe they want more. They want more humiliation, more chaos in this country as a way of saying to other countries, don't get involved with trying to leave us because we'll wreck your government will cause absolute misery. Don't try to leave. This is what happens to you. So it's one of those two things, really. Why they haven't just accepted Chequers and said, yeah, we'll have that, I don't know. Maybe it's because even if they do, May can't get her Chequers plan through Parliament anyway. It's all very interesting. Davis is good here, I think.
No, I think, you see, what Brussels may well do is add a few more things on. Well, a lot of people don't like Chequers even more, think it's the absolute last step you can go. We've made all the concessions we can. So Brussels will want to put something else.
Brussels want to put something else. This is my theory. They don't want to accept Chequers even though it keeps us in the EU. They want more. It's good stuff by Davis. We're leaving Brexit now after one last little clip from Davis. What about the leadership issue? Sophie Ridge asks him about May and Johnson here. Is Davis again.
Now, another big question, of course, as we go into the conference is leadership. Theresa May's had a rocky few months. There's been open discussions about her future among Conservative MPs. Would you support her leading the Conservatives into the next election?
Well, that's up to her, frankly. I mean, from the beginning...
Well, it might not just be up to her. There might be a no-confidence vote.
Too, I know.
So how would you vote in a no-confidence vote?
To keep her in. I mean, look, when I resigned, I took a great deal of trouble to depersonalise this, because it seems to me we're conflating leadership on the one hand and policy on the other. I want a change of policy, not a change of leader. And where I differ from Boris, who's front page of the papers this morning, is he's conflating the two. I think this is such an important issue. We must keep it away from internal Tory party battles and from leadership issues. Such an important issue. I mean, look, there are lots of things he says I agree with, but on this we differ.
Yeah, he'll support May as long as there's a change in policy. David Davis, the former Brexit secretary there, very interesting stuff. He said it'll be chaotic in the next few weeks. It'll be absolutely chaotic. It'll be brinkmanship at its best, and it's basically about who blinks first. But again, you've got to put that in the context of the fact that May's plan would keep the UK in the European Union. Neither Remainers nor those who voted to leave are going to support that plan anyway. Chaos is the operative word in the sentence. It's 22 minutes past 11. When we come back, we'll briefly chat about a data breach at the Conservative Party conference. Very interesting, this. And then we'll take a completely different shift and we'll go somewhere else entirely. This is Sunday View, live on Fab Radio, TuneIn Radio, triggerwarning.tv. We're on Cogent Radio as well and richieallen.co.uk. I'll be back in 90 seconds.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever. Forever.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS, and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show.
Yes, and we've only looked at the front page of the Sunday Times. The Sunday Telegraph. Thanks for getting up, by the way. Thanks for spending some time with me this Sunday morning, the 30th of September. Good to be with you. Thank you. The Sunday Telegraph then, front page headline, Tory fury as party faces huge fine for disgraceful data breach or data breach. What's this all about? Well, the party, according to the Telegraph, might be fined up to £2 million after its software for conference delegates exposed the personal details of thousands of MPs and attendees, including cabinet ministers. Pretty serious, this, because those details included mobile phone numbers and email addresses. And I think Boris Johnson's mobile phone number was there for a while. I'm sure it's been changed now. A government source raised concerns about the potential security implications for cabinet ministers, given that these mobile phone numbers can be used to track the location of the telephone associated with the number. So the Conservative Party chairman, Brandon Lewis, was on Sophie Ridge, and she pressed him on how this could have happened. Brandon Lewis, I'm surprised nobody blamed the Russians for this, although it is early in the day.
Well, any breach of data is a serious matter. That's why we are taking it seriously. We're investigating. We've already contacted the Information Commission. We'll be putting in a fuller report to them. We've spoken to the company that supplied it, who themselves have put out a statement apologising for the error that they made. This will affect people where somebody has guessed or already knew somebody's email address and was able to therefore log in as them. So it will be a limited number of our delegates here, but we are contacting the delegates at Commons to outline to them exactly what has happened and what they can do about that. But any breach is a serious breach, and that's why we are fully investigating it and are taking it very seriously.
When you say it's a limited number of delegates, but these are some potentially very important people affected. I mean, the Foreign Secretary, for example, is the former Foreign Secretary, one of them. I mean, who's responsible for it, and how many people are we actually talking about?
Well, I can't get into the details at the moment in terms of the numbers, because we're doing that investigation at the moment, working with the company who supplied the app, who supply companies like Barclays and Nissan and eBay for conferences and things around the world. But it is serious. Any breach of data is serious. It's why we are taking it seriously.
So who's responsible then?
Within finding out about this issue yesterday, within half an hour we had fixed this problem. The company had shut that security issue down. So the app is now functioning fully, properly and securely. There are a number of delegates where if somebody logged in who already knew their email address, they would have been able to see the photograph, the email address that they'd used to log in, and if it was there, a mobile phone number. And that's happened. That has affected a few people, as you've rightly outlined, and we are working with all of the delegates at Commons to let them know exactly what has happened.
Yeah. She asked him several times who's to blame for it, and he didn't venture an opinion, whether it's the company involved or whatever. But I'm surprised that mischief hasn't been made, or more mischief hasn't been made out of this, and that somebody hasn't tried to apportion the blame to hackers in Russia. But then again, give it time. It's early enough in the day, 27 minutes past 11 this morning, as it is now. Sunday Observer. Now, this is important, something that has been discussed many times on this programme. The headline on the front page of the Observer is Tories demand urgent action to curb children's social media use. It's very Tory-centric today, Richie. Well, it was very Labour-centric last week. The party conference season is just about to conclude with the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham, which begins today and will run till Thursday, right? Or thereabouts. So the papers are covering a lot of stories and a lot of these new policies or policy directives from the Conservative Party. So Tories demand urgent action to curb children's social media use. What's it about? The government is to produce the first official guidelines on the maximum amount of time young people should spend on social media. Health Secretary Matt Hancock says today, amid growing concern about the links between its excessive use and mental health problems among children. In an interview with The Observer before the party conference, which opens in Birmingham, Hancock says he has instructed the UK's Chief Medical Officer, Dame Sally Davies, to draw up advice as soon as possible that he hopes will become an accepted, quote, norm in society, unquote, like that on recommended maximum alcohol consumption for adults. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. How's that working out for you? This accepted unit guide. You know, a man should have no more than 4 units of alcohol a week. Give me a break. Right? I'm not speaking for myself now. I'm not, actually. But how's that worked out for them? People couldn't give a shit about that sort of advice. If you're a heavy drinker, you'll be a heavy drinker. If you drink 4 days a week, you'll drink 4 days a week. Anyway. So, Hancock has 3 children under 12 and says he is seriously alarmed by the evidence of links between mental health problems in young people and unlimited social media use. Sky reporter Charlotte Lomas has more of the details proposed by Matt Hancock, Charlotte Lomas.
Much like the guidance that we have for how much alcohol we should drink, this is what the Health and Social Care Secretary Matt Hancock is calling for. He's asked for medical experts to now issue some time guidance, calculate how many hours of using social media is safe for children. He's brought this up ahead of the Conservative Party conference, admitting that he himself, as a father of three, is concerned about this. And that really is like many echoed across the country. There are concern over the potential damage that social media can have on children. We know that there's chasing likes, being unable to switch off, keeping up with your friends. These can all cause anxiety and depression in children. So now they're calling for actually to calculate the number of hours, so it actually takes the pressure off parents. They'll actually then supply this norm for parents who then don't have to decide themselves.
Yeah, provide a norm for parents who then don't have to decide for themselves. Yeah. You see, the physiological changes are now apparent in the brains of children under MRI scan. We know this. This isn't new. So children are having psychological problems because they are addicted to this technology. This is a fact, no doubt about it. But we've known this because for some time now, you know, academics in the United States and academics in other parts of the world, in Japan, have been able to measure the changes physiologically under the MRI scan. It is rewiring the brains of everybody who uses this technology all the time, but it's more apparent in children. They're more susceptible to it. It's changing them. It's changing their behaviour. It's screwing up the development of their natural personalities. It's creating children that are not empathetic. They have no empathy. It's creating almost the sociopathic generations. Children growing up not caring about other people, solely and exclusively focused on themselves. This technology is turning them inwards, turning everybody away from their fellow man and woman in the outside world and the majesty of it and the beauty of it and interaction with other people. It's changing them, and it is deliberate. It's not an accident. It's not an accident. It's not an unintended byproduct of the rollout of all this stuff. It is by design. It must be obvious to people now. There's no way, if we're ever blessed with a child, that he or she will ever have one of those devices. If I have to do what that character did in that film, Leave No Trace, and move to a mountain community somewhere, in the Ozarks or in the Alps, to keep a child away from the madness of that, it's crazy. Only last week, The Lancet published a study. In fact, it was The Lancet Child and Adolescent Health. And they published a study based on surveying children in America. And they found, surprise, surprise, that the level of cognition in children who don't have so much access to the phones is actually higher. Higher levels of cognition in children who don't use the technology all the time. And in the children that do use it, low levels of cognition, along with lower levels of empathy and inability to have basic conversations with other children. 18 to 24-year-olds were studied last year by The Lancet again, and 18 to 24-year-olds said overwhelmingly that they felt sad, anxious or depressed when they thought about how social media addiction was affecting them. So they asked a load of 18 to 24-year-olds to think about what they feel like when they're using social media all the time. And nearly half of them said, yeah, depressed, yeah, pissed off, anxious, fed up. Of course. 26 minutes to midday. This is Sunday View. Big story, that. Sunday Express, we won't stay with this. The front page headline is May's plan to crush Corbyn. And this is about some of these policies coming out that we're expected to hear at the Conservative Party conference this week. Some of the policies are going to sound very like some of Jeremy Corbyn's policies. Policies around building homes and stuff like that. The Express is saying that the Conservatives will take the fight to Labour by becoming a little bit left-leaning in some of their policies. It's just a load of garbage. But it's in the Express anyway. Now, the Mail on Sunday, this is a big story, I think. I think this is a big story, and nobody will be talking about this today. Before we get into it, let me just read a few tweets, by the way. Good morning, Natasha. Richie, are they also taking into consideration the effects of all the mobile masts near and sometimes even on school property, etc.? Again, that's a brilliant point. That's right. Leaving out the effect that the child is experiencing because he or she is constantly looking at a phone that is almost super glued to their left hand. Leaving that to one side, yes, the exposure to non-ionizing radiation coming from the masts is having a massive effect. Of course it is. That's a very good point as well. Feathers are us. Good morning. Richie, the company that makes apps for Barclays and eBay, interesting. Wonder if they work with Facebook too. Good question. Facebook has had to admit, hasn't it, in the last few days that millions of accounts have been hacked. And as if it makes it all okay, Facebook has said that Zuckerberg himself has been hacked. Who gives a Don't swear, Richie. Not too much anyway. These are the damned. Good morning. The Tories have brought cold and dull weather to Birmingham. I'm sure they have. Paul tweets, Richie, what do you think about the story of the woman who recognises one of the men involved in the poisoning in Salisbury? Yeah, this is a Russian woman. The BBC has gone out to Russia, and it's gone out to a place where the poisoners allegedly lived, and has been asking people if they recognise them. And one of the women has said that one of the men involved was in the army and he received an award from Putin. You know what, Paul? It's such a load of bollocks, the entire story. I've just given up on it, really. I really have. You know, there are so many holes in it, it's like a Swiss cheese. Good morning to Liz Jones. Good morning, Liz, to Base Ninja, to Martin, to Tez Howell, my pal Tez. Apparently, at the NRL Grand Final Down Under, there have been advertising, or there is advertising on screen and on the pitch for the rollout of 5G there. I'm not surprised to hear that. Good morning to Mwinga as well. Right, I better move on because I want to get through a few things. And this is a good story now. The Mail on Sunday, the front page, doesn't lead with Brexit, amazingly. Doesn't lead with Boris Johnson and Theresa May, amazingly. It leads with a booming headline that is Save Our Parks. Save Our Parks. Don't do that again. I hit the microphone there. Save Our Parks. Very important because it's happening all over the world. Pay attention. Listen up. Hark. Save Our Parks. So the Mail Online has launched, the Sunday Mail has launched a campaign, a national campaign with its readers. It hopes its readers will get involved to save our parks. What's going on? Well, the Mail on Sunday alleges that thousands of parks are falling into disrepair and or are being sold off by cash-strapped councils. Joni Mitchell, anyone. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. This is fascinating, and it is depressing and it is devastating, but it's going on. The Mail on Sunday reveals thousands of parks are falling into permanent disrepair or they're being sold off by cash-strapped councils. Children's play areas are being closed. Grass is overgrowing. Flower beds are being removed at hundreds of sites across the country. Other parks are becoming no-go zones, plagued by drug users and antisocial behaviour. Why? Because staff are being withdrawn. Staff are being fired. We'll hear about this in a minute. In the worst cases, councils are flogging chunks of parkland to housing developers in order for the council to raise money, despite huge protests and while wasting millions on vanity projects elsewhere. The Mail says our investigation found almost 1 in 3 councils, that's nearly 33%, had sold off green space in the last year, and 1 in 5, 20%, plans to sell off land within the next 3 years. Land that is vital in cities. It is vital for the mental and spiritual well-being of people. I know this because we live in a massive city. Caroline and I were only a couple of miles from the city centre, the ever-expanding Manchester. It is massive. and it is noisy. And sometimes you get a smell of petrol or diesel and you hear the sirens all the time. But you know what? We've got some of the most beautiful green spaces anywhere. And it's wonderful to be able to escape to those green spaces and not only spend time with the people you love and your pets, but also speak to other people. Actually fucking meet other people and say hello to them and get into conversations with them and rub up against physical human beings. But they are being obliterated. And the Mail on Sunday's campaign, while laudable and while wonderful and while in the best possible spirit, they're probably missing the point. There is a reason for this. This is at the heart of Agenda 30, Agenda 21. Parks were founded in the Victorian era, writes the Sunday Mail. Yes, to promote health and well-being. Yes, but they're being sold off. They're being sold off. Parkies, as they used to be known, the men and women who looked after the park, and years ago you'd see them in the Beano comics and in the Dandy comics chasing away the children. They don't exist anymore. They're being fired. The Mail finds 1 in 3 parks no longer has any staff on sites. 3/4 of councils say they've cut back on park maintenance. 214 play areas across England have been shut since 2014. 214 shut since 2014. Park funding slashed by at least £15 million in the past 2 years. Councils are cutting budgets by as much as £750,000. 95% of councils expect to make further cuts to parks in the next 5 years. Agenda 2130. There is a malevolent force working on this planet that doesn't want us healthy, doesn't want us to congregate, wants us indoors on the phone and on the laptop while our brains are being hardwired, while they're being changed. This is true. This is true. It sounds mad, but it's true. Liz Kershaw is a broadcaster. I've always liked Liz. Don't agree with everything she says. She reviews the Sunday newspapers for Sky. She's here with a woman called Julie Bindell, who's a feminist. This is Liz Kershaw talking about what happens when you take people's parks away from them.
Yeah, this is very important, I think. If you live in a built-up area and you want to, get out of your own house or garden, there aren't many spaces where you can walk without traffic, without dogs coming at you, the rest of it. I was at the seaside all this week, and we were walking on the beach every day, me and my cousin, power walking 5 kilometres, and there's open skies and open sea and
it's good for
fresh air. And we just said to each other, this is so great. Where else in the country now can you walk straight, 2.5 kilometres and back without any traffic or pollution or no?
Terrible.
And so the people rely on parks, to go walking or playing sports or congregating.
I always thought as a country, though, we were quite good for parks.
Well, this is a campaign started by the Mail on Sunday. It's the front page as well as this spread. I know from personal experience, developers will try and come in and grab a little piece of green in a village and they'll try and sell it to the council. We're going to build affordable houses to get through the planning process. And what happens then? There's no open spaces for people.
And the other thing that's happening in parks, and my local park, they've reduced costs, so they've sacked the park keeper. And that means that the little lakes are all, dried up and the grass is rarely cut. It's nowhere near as pretty, and they're using volunteers to keep it just about usable. But, that'll soon go, and it'll be deemed too dangerous for kids to play.
Well, it's important, isn't it, to have... It's very good for the mental health to have a bit of open space.
Can I just give people a quick piece of advice? The Campaign for the Protection of Rural England, I'll give you advice. And if you can prove that a piece of land has been used for recreational purposes for 20 years, you can defend it.
Oh, right.
Oh, really?
Oh, no, that's worth knowing.
It is worth knowing. It's really important, this, and I know that if you're listening to this in Australia or in New Zealand or in France or if you're in the United States of America, the same thing is happening in your town. They are getting rid of green space. Green space that today, Sunday, I know if I head to Alexandra Park on Princess Road, which is, again, only a couple of miles from the city, wonderful park, beautifully kept. I know if I go to Plattfields Park, I know if I go to Fog Lane Park, you know what I'm going to see today? I'm going to see people out with their children, talking to one another, sitting down in the grass, maybe not today, the weather's not marvellous, chasing sticks and balls with their dogs. They're out and about, they're away from the telly, they're away from the phone just for a few minutes, they're away from the Wi-Fi, they're away from the stress of everything. That's why they have to be taken away. And don't think for a second it's madness to suggest that it's part of some overarching plan for humanity, because it is. It really is. Devastating to read those figures. And congratulations again to the Mail on Sunday, which is, I know, it's a crazy paper. It's almost like it's got some sort of schizophrenia, the paper. One day it's bashing Muslims and blaming Muslims for everything. Another day it isn't. Another day it's doing good work like this. And then another day it's backing, I don't know, some stupid political initiative. But there are some good people doing some good stuff still, just about, around the edges of the mainstream media. And that's an important story. Even if the Mail on Sunday doesn't understand why it's happening, at least it's pointing it out. Very important. You know, a lot of you are saying to me that councils can't be strapped for cash. They're not strapped for cash. This is a lie. They are making trillions of pounds a year in charging people upwards of £1,200 per annum for their bins to be collected. And they're not even collecting them on a weekly basis. Again, not going to get into that, ranted about that last week. They're not short of money. That's a cover story for selling parkland to developers. Dreadful. Parks are vital. Hugely important story today. It's on the front page of the Mail on Sunday. But outside of Liz Kershaw speaking about it on Sky, nobody's picking that story up today. Going to move on swiftly because I'm running out of time. The Financial Times newspaper, it's a Murdoch paper, has an annual 100 female champions of women in business list. Good stuff. Every year they get 100 women and they say that these women are business women, entrepreneurs that champion women. I have no problem with it. Listen, I have no interest in identity politics or isms or ologies, you know that. But fair enough, I've no issue with it. Well, Tanya Gold, who writes for the Sunday Telegraph, she's properly pissed off at this year's 100 female champions of women in business list. She's absolutely pulling her hair out. Why? Well, because the list contains a gender fluid man. You thought I was going to say a trans woman, didn't you? Didn't you? Haha, so did I. No, they haven't put a trans woman on the 100 female champions of women in business list. They've put a gender fluid man on there. Some fucking fruitcake who one day thinks he's a bloke and the next day thinks he's a woman. And he's got a tallywhacker. Right. And he's on the list. He's on the list. What number is he on the list? He's not number one, thank God, but he's on the list. Philip Bunce is his name. And Philip is a technology director at the bank Credit Suisse. If you needed any other reason to hate Philip, he's a banker as well. He's not a trans woman. He's not living full-time as a woman. And he doesn't wish to transition ever. Philip is a man, but sometimes he's a woman, according to Philip. Sometimes he puts on a pair of tights, puts on a pair of high heels, little skirt, little belt, a little bit of makeup, bit of slap and tickle, and out he goes, rocks out on the town. Get in there, my son. And then he comes back, takes it all off, and he's a man again. And the Financial Times have said that he's one of the 100 female champions of women in business. So he's on the list. Good stuff. So Tanya Gold is absolutely apoplectic, and she writes about this in the Sunday Telegraph. It's worth reading, actually, because the rage just jumps off the page when you're reading it. Oh, Christ. Mad, isn't it? Gender fluid. And he gets on the 100 women in business list. The 100, what is it again? Said it so quickly. The 100 promoters of women, what is it? The 100 female champions of women in business list. Good man. Champion of women. And he's gender fluid. Right, shall we leave that there? Let's move on. And in the Sun on Sunday, now, to my Liverpool listeners, it's a newspaper that I never buy, never have done. In fact, I never did buy the Sun ever, even before Hillsborough. But it'll never be bought. Read it online for free. Interesting story. Here's the headline. Kids were in danger. Girl Guide leader sacked over fears about new transgender rules. Says girls could be at risk showering and sharing tents with men. What's going on? Well, a Girl Guide leader says she was sacked because she expressed her fears that new transgender rules could put girls in vulnerable situations. A new policy introduced by the Girl Guides reportedly says that leaders are not allowed to tell girls or their parents if a girl or leader in their unit used to identify as male. And that's the important bit. Leader. So if you've got a Girl Guide leader, that's an adult, who is a man who thinks that he is a woman, you're not allowed to tell the parents. She said there are safeguarding issues around that, and she was sacked. Right. Let's go back to Liz Kershaw and Julie Bindell, who covered this story for Sky News today. So this Girl Guide leader, Helen Watts, who's a woman, a real woman, she was fired because she expressed concerns that we must be telling the parents of the young girls if a leader is a trans woman. She was fired for that. Here's Sky News, Liz Kershaw and Julie Bindell.
Yeah, it's been in the news all week. The Girl Guides, there was a story about one of their team leaders had self-identified as a woman, but it was physically, biologically still, this person was still a man. And yet the Girl Guide Association, wanting to be all, inclusive and everything, was prepared to allow him to take young girls on camping trips, be present when they showered, took them into bed and all the rest of it. And parents were rightly outraged. So were some of the other guide leaders, and two of them were sacked. And this one has now spoken out in an interview in the Mail on Sunday, so she's giving her side of the story. And her main thing is child protection. Mm-hmm. And I must admit, if I had a daughter, I would have thanked her for telling me about this situation, because if you're sending somebody away on holiday, I think
there's probably going to be. To be fair, though, if someone has the physical form of a boy, and they're not predatory men, we're talking about boys and girls here.
We're talking about an adult man.
But if they're still in, have that physical, well,
if they're still intact,
have their genitalia.
Yeah.
They're going to be showering different. They're not going to be in the same showers.
No, these are supervised. No. We're not talking.
But why aren't they telling the parents then? That's Stephen Dixon, the presenter of the programme on Sky News. And he says, what difference does it make if they still have their genitalia? Because now they identify as a woman. They're not going to be in the showers with the girls, he says. Right, okay, it's a reasonable thing to say. But why compel the leaders of the Girl Guides not to tell the parents? Why would you do that? Right, that's what I would have said.
Oh, no. We're not talking about boys joining the guides after identifying as girls. That's a separate subject. A related.
It's still
We're talking about the leaders, the guide leaders, the brown owls, as they used to be called. I don't know if they still are. Mm-hmm. So you've got a man dressed as a woman, identifying now as a woman. Let's be blunt, still got a penis, still able to have an erection, watching your girls, supervising your girls, showering. And
parents aren't allowed to know that the trans person is actually male-bodied and trans.
That's very important, Julie Bindell sticking in there. Why would the parents not be told about that? There isn't a logical explanation for not telling the parents. By the way, we've got to let you know, in the interest of safeguarding and in the interest of you as the parent having the absolute right to know who your child is spending time with, got to let you know, Mary there, who's one of the leaders, Mary is actually a man, is actually a trans woman. So Mary is a man, has got the genitalia, but now identifies as a woman. So we're letting you know that. How could you make an argument against that? It's good, right? It's good to put that point without getting into the whole area of, abuse and shouting and screaming and name calling. Answer me that. Why would the parents not be told?
And transition to female and identifies as female. So parents aren't allowed to know when boys who transition to girls.
But we're not in the age now. We're not in the age where boys, scouts, cubs, guides, brownies, all the rest of it. There's some matron stood there watching everyone taking a shower. They go and have a shower and then they come out again. They're not being supervised and observed by anybody.
The thing is that girls, and especially teenage girls, are very vulnerable, feel very self-conscious, as do many boys. And if you're going to have mixed sex away days where people share the same facilities, then make it clear to parents and the girls and the boys, and they can decide. But pretending that a fully intact male-bodied person who identifies as a woman is the same as a natal woman is ludicrous. But I think that the main thrust of the story for me is how these guides have been sacked.
Fired.
That they have been pushed out because they have said something that you're now not allowed to say, which is a woman equals an adult human female. It's just a fact. It doesn't mean trans people are the problem. It means that men can be dangerous and sexually violent to girls and to other women.
As can women. Women can be dangerous and sexually violent to girls. There's been a number of stories in the tabloid media last week and the week before about teachers, female teachers, preying on 13 and 14-year-old girls, seducing them, taking them away. Number of stories. Women can be predatory too. Let's be honest about it. But the point she's making there is absolutely right. Why would the parents not be entitled to know that? How dare the governing body of the Girl Guides instruct the leaders of the various, I don't know what you call them. What do you call them? The various, memberships or whatever in the various towns, instructing the leaders of the various Girl Guide clubs around the country that you can't tell the parents. It's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And for the two women to be fired, and the woman who gave an interview to The Sun on Sunday today, Helen Watts, to be fired for raising concerns about that, shows you where we are. And that's what's coming down the road, dear friend. Things like this, where opinions, we're expressing an opinion on gender, whatever it might be, whether you say, well, I don't believe a trans woman is really a woman, or I believe that gender fluid people are stark raving fucking mad, which I do, by the way. They're harmless enough, as long as they mind their own business. In terms of, don't be telling me what I have to say and don't be telling me what I have to do. If you want to believe that you can morph from male to female from one day to the other, like the Credit Suisse dickhead, you do that if you want, but I'm entitled to think that you are stark raving fucking mad. You're a madman. Right? You're not dangerous. You're not dangerous to me. You're probably not dangerous to yourself, but you're stark raving fucking mad. Gender fluid. And the Financial Times putting a guy on the women influencers in business list who's not even a trans woman. It's madness. It's absolute madness. Do you know what? We're going to leave it there. I'm going to shut it down. It's approaching 2 minutes to midday. This is Sunday View for September 30th, 2018. I've been Richie Allen. The live show, of course, returns tomorrow, Monday at 5 p.m. The full live show, where I'll be with you between 5 and 7, Monday to Thursday. I'll have some good guests for you tomorrow as well. I look forward to your company there. This programme will begin repeating soon. It will stay on a loop on richieallen.co.uk for the rest of the day until tomorrow, and it'll be on Podomatic, iTunes and Spotify and YouTube real soon as well. Do let other people know about the show. That's a nice way to help out this particular show. Save our parks, says the Mail on Sunday. Let's give the Mail on Sunday the inaugural, the first ever Richie Allen Show story of the day for Sunday View. Save our parks. Get onto your councils. Don't allow them to sell off the green space in your inner cities. Don't ever let it happen. Whatever you have to do to prevent it happening, you do it. Going to leave you with this. I've not got the original by Joni Mitchell for some reason, so we've got to leave you with Counting Crows. And this is Big Yellow Taxi. Paving paradise to put up a parking lot. Don't let it happen. See you tomorrow at 5. Until then, look after yourselves and one another. Bye now.